Elena froze. The voice was deep, resonating in her chest like the low hum of a cello. She turned slowly, bracing herself for the inevitable look of disdain, the polite excuse, the sudden need to be somewhere else. But when she met Caleb's eyes, she found none of that. He was a mountain of a man, broad-shouldered and solid, wearing a heavy canvas jacket that had seen better days. His dark hair was cut short and practical, and his face carried the rough texture of someone who worked outdoors in the Chicago wind. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. They were warm, crinkled at the corners, and fixed entirely on her. He did not look at her frayed coat. He did not look at her scuffed boots. He looked at her face. "I just got here," Elena lied softly, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to sound casual. She tightened her grip on the lapels of her coat. "I almost thought you weren't coming." Caleb smiled, and the expression transformed his rugged face into something open and boyish. "I wouldn't miss it," he said. He shifted slightly, positioning himself between her and the biting wind coming off the lake. It was a subtle movement, unconscious and fluid, but it instantly cut the chill that had been gnawing at her side. "Though I should warn you, I might smell a little like diesel. I scrubbed for 20 minutes, but that stuff has a mind of its own." Elena blinked. The men she usually dated smelled of sandalwood and expensive scotch. They wore suits that cost more than most people's cars. Caleb smelled of industrial soap and rain. It was strangely grounding. "It's fine," she said. "I'm not exactly dressed for a gala myself." She waited for him to comment on her appearance. She had curated this outfit carefully from a thrift store in Logan Square. The coat was 2 sizes too big and missing a button. The scarf was pilled. She wanted to look like a burden. She wanted to look like a woman who would need financial help, just to see if he would run. Caleb glanced at her coat, but his expression didn't flicker. "You look warm," he said simply. "That's what matters in this weather. Shall we go inside?" He extended his arm. Before we continue this story, please hit the like button and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I'd love to know. His hand was large, the knuckles swollen and scarred from years of wrenching bolts and fighting rusted metal. His fingernails were short and clean, but the skin around them was stained permanently dark with grease. Elena hesitated for a fraction of a second, then slid her hand into the crook of his elbow. His arm felt like iron wrapped in cotton. They moved toward the heavy oak doors of the Gilded Fork. It was a bistro chosen by the app's algorithm, not by them. Elena knew it well. She had designed the lighting schematic for the renovation 3 years ago. It was the kind of place where water cost $9 a bottle, and the staff were trained to silently assess the net worth of every guest who walked in. As Caleb pulled the door open for her, a blast of warm air carrying the scent of rosemary and roasted garlic washed over them. The restaurant was dimly lit, humming with the soft clatter of silverware and the murmur of polite conversation. Elena immediately felt the shift in the atmosphere. Heads turned. A couple near the entrance, sipping martinis, paused their conversation to stare. Elena shrank inside her coat. This was the part she hated, even if she had orchestrated it. The judgment, the silent rejection. The host, a man named Julian with a perfectly gelled undercut and a suit that fit too tightly, looked up from his podium. His professional smile faltered the moment he saw them. He scanned Caleb's work boots and Elena's shapeless coat. His nose wrinkled slightly, a micro-expression of disgust that Elena had seen 1,000 times. "Good evening," Caleb said. His voice was calm, carrying easily over the ambient noise. "Reservation for Caleb. Table for 2. Julian did not check the tablet in front of him. He clasped his hands behind his back and offered a tight, patronizing smile. "Ah, yes, I see. Unfortunately, sir, we are experiencing a higher volume than expected tonight. I believe there was a glitch with the online booking system." Elena felt her stomach drop. She knew Julian was lying. She could see 3 empty tables near the window. "We have a confirmation," Elena said, her voice sounding small. "I saw it on the app." Julian turned his gaze to her. It was cold and dismissive. "The app is often inaccurate regarding our real-time availability. Perhaps there is a diner down the street that would be more suitable for your requirements." The insult hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. He was telling them they didn't belong. He was telling them they were trash. Elena felt the familiar sting of humiliation, tears pricking her eyes. She started to pull her arm away from Caleb. "It's okay," she whispered, looking at the floor. Caleb, let's just go. It doesn't matter. She expected Caleb to be embarrassed. She expected him to get angry, to shout, or to simply turn around and walk away, relieved to escape the awkwardness of being seen with a woman who looked like a vagrant. Caleb did not move. He did not shout. He did not let go of her arm. Instead, he gently patted her hand where it rested on his elbow. A silent signal to stay put. He took one step closer to the podium. He didn't puff out his chest or posture aggressively. He simply occupied the space with a total, undeniable stillness. He looked Julian in the eye, his expression unreadable but intensely focused. "My date is cold," Caleb said. The volume of his voice hadn't raised a decibel, but the timbre of it seemed to drop, vibrating with a heavy, dangerous weight. "We have a reservation. We are hungry. And I see 3 empty tables." Julian blinked, unnerved by the lack of aggression. He was used to people yelling. He wasn't used to this kind of absolute, grounded authority. "Sir, those tables are reserved for Julian," Caleb said, reading the name tag on the man's lapel. "We aren't asking for the best table. We are asking for the table we were promised. We are going to eat here, and you are going to seat us, tonight." Caleb didn't make a threat. He stated a fact. It was the way a father tells a child to stop running, or the way a captain gives an order in a storm. There was no room for argument because the outcome was already decided. Julian hesitated. He looked at Caleb's hands, then back at his face. He saw something there, a resilience that money couldn't buy, and a temper that was leashed tight but present. The host swallowed hard. "Right this way," Julian muttered, grabbing 2 menus. He led them not to the window tables, but to a small 2-top near the kitchen doors. It was a bad table. It was noisy, and the waiters would be rushing past constantly. Julian dropped the menus on the table with a slap and walked away without a word. Elena sank into the chair, her face burning. She kept her coat buttoned to her chin. "I'm so sorry," she said, staring at the white tablecloth. "That was humiliating. We should have left." Caleb sat opposite her. The chair creaked under his weight. He didn't look at the kitchen doors. He didn't look at the bad view. He looked at her. "Elena," he said softly. She looked up. "He was rude because he is unhappy," Caleb said, unfolding his napkin and placing it on his lap. "He doesn't know you. He doesn't know me. His opinion is just noise. But I am sorry he made you feel unwelcome. That wasn't right." He picked up the water glass and filled hers first, then his own. His movements were deliberate and graceful for such a large man. "Why didn't you get angry?" Elena asked. She was truly baffled. The corporate sharks she worked with would have had Julian fired on the spot. They would have made a scene to prove their power. Caleb shrugged, a slow roll of his shoulders. "Anger is expensive," he said. "It costs energy. It costs peace. He isn't worth the price. You are." Elena felt a lump form in her throat. "You are." She watched him pick up the menu. He held it with one hand, his brow furrowing slightly as he scanned the prices. Elena saw his eyes widen just a fraction. She knew the menu. The cheapest entree was $38. A glass of wine was $18. She saw Caleb's jaw tighten. He wasn't looking at the descriptions of the food. He was doing math. Inside Caleb's head, the numbers were running like a ticker tape. He had $42 in his wallet. He had $7 in his checking account until Friday. His sister's lawyer had taken the retainer fee yesterday, wiping out his savings. He needed $20 for gas to get to work for the rest of the week. If he ordered dinner, he wouldn't be able to drive to the shop. He would have to walk 6 miles each way in the snow. He looked at Elena. She looked small and defeated in her oversized coat. She looked like she expected the world to kick her. He knew that look. He saw it in the mirror every morning since the custody battle began. He couldn't fix her life. He couldn't fix his own right now. But he could feed her. He could make sure that for 1 hour she didn't feel like a second-class citizen. "The roasted chicken looks good," Caleb said, smiling at her over the top of the menu. "But you should get whatever you want. Don't look at the prices. Tonight is on me." I'm not that hungry," Elena lied. She wanted to save him the embarrassment. She could tell he was working class. "Maybe just a soup." "Nonsense," Caleb said firmly but kindly. "You were standing in the cold. You need a hot meal. Get the steak. Or the fish. Please." It would make me happy to see you eat. A waiter appeared. A young man who looked exhausted, holding a notepad. I'll have the ribeye, Elena said, testing him one last time. It was the second most expensive thing on the menu. Caleb didn't flinch. He didn't wince. He nodded approval. Good choice. And for you, sir? The waiter asked. Caleb closed his menu. I had a late lunch, he lied smoothly. I'll just have the house salad and a water, no lemon. Elena frowned. A salad? Caleb, you're a big guy. You can't just eat leaves. I'm really not hungry, he insisted, his eyes smiling. Besides, I want to save room for dessert if you want some later. He was lying. Elena could see the hunger in the way he had looked at the bread basket the waiter just set down. He was starving. He was sacrificing his meal so she could have hers. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She had worn these clothes to test if he was shallow. She hadn't expected to find someone who would starve himself to ensure she felt taken care of. So, Caleb said, leaning forward, resting his heavy forearms on the table. Tell me about you, Elena. Not what you do for work. Tell me what makes you happy. Tell me what gets you out of bed on a rainy Tuesday. Elena looked at him. The noise of the restaurant faded. For the first time in years, she felt the armor around her heart crack. She wasn't the wealthy architect right now. She was just a woman sitting across from a man who had nothing, but was offering her everything he had. I like old buildings, she said, her voice finding a sudden strength. I like seeing things that are broken and imagining how to make them beautiful again. Caleb smiled, and it reached his eyes. Then we have something in common. I fix broken things too. Mostly engines, but the principle is the same. You have to listen to them. They usually tell you what hurts if you listen long enough. They talked. For 20 minutes, the outside world ceased to exist. Caleb listened with an intensity that made Elena feel like the only person in the room. He didn't interrupt. He didn't check his phone. He didn't look at the waitress's legs. He just listened, but the peace was fragile. Across the room, Julian was watching them. He was on the phone, his hand cupped over his mouth, his eyes darting toward their table. He hung up and walked toward the kitchen, whispering something to the floor manager. Elena saw the movement. Her anxiety spiked. Caleb, she whispered. The manager is staring at us again. Caleb didn't turn around. He broke a piece of bread and buttered it slowly. Let him stare. We are paying customers. We have done nothing wrong. But, Elena, Caleb said, his voice dropping to that low, protective rumble again. I am right here. Nothing is going to happen. Just eat your bread. But something was happening. The waiter returned with their food, but he didn't look exhausted anymore. He looked nervous. He placed Elena's steak down quickly, the sauce sloshing slightly onto the rim of the plate. He placed Caleb's salad down. I'm sorry, the waiter whispered, barely moving his lips. My manager. He says you have 45 minutes. We have a private party coming in for this section. It was a lie. Another lie. Caleb looked at the waiter. He saw the boy's hands shaking. He realized the kid was just a messenger, likely threatened with his job if he didn't clear the riffraff. Thank you for telling us, Caleb said gently to the waiter. It's not your fault. The waiter nodded gratefully and scurried away. Caleb looked at his salad. It was small. A few leaves of lettuce and 3 cherry tomatoes. His stomach growled audibly. He coughed to cover the sound. 45 minutes, Elena said bitterly. They are trying to push us out. Then let's enjoy 45 minutes, Caleb said, picking up his fork. The best 45 minutes of the week. He was refusing to let the toxicity of the world enter their circle. He was building a wall of calm around her. But Elena could see the strain in his jaw. She could see the tiredness around his eyes. He was fighting a battle on 2 fronts, one against the restaurant, and one against his own fatigue and hunger. She cut into her steak. It was perfectly cooked. She looked at Caleb's sad bowl of leaves. Caleb, she said, I can't eat this whole thing. It's too big. Help me. I'm fine, really, he said. Please, she said, cutting a large piece of the ribeye. I hate wasting food, and I trust your opinion on the seasoning. She held the fork out to him. It was an intimate gesture, something couples did, not strangers on a first date. Caleb looked at the fork. He looked at her eyes. He saw that she wasn't pitying him. She was sharing. He leaned forward and took the bite. He chewed slowly, nodding. "It's good," he said. "Honest food." "Have another," she said. For a moment, they were just two people sharing a meal in a foxhole, ignoring the war outside. But the war was coming to them. Julian walked over to their table. He didn't bring a water pitcher. He didn't bring a dessert menu. He brought the check. "I hate to rush you," Julian said, his voice dripping with false syrup. "But we need this table." Elena looked at her plate. She was halfway finished. Caleb's salad was gone. "We are still eating," Caleb said. He didn't look up. He continued to butter a piece of bread. "I'm afraid I must insist," Julian said, his voice hardening. "We have a waiting list." Caleb stopped buttering the bread. He placed the knife down on the plate with a deliberate clink. He turned his chair slowly to face Julian fully. He didn't stand up. He didn't need to. The air around the table seemed to drop 10 degrees. "We have been here 20 minutes, Caleb said. "My date is not finished. You brought the check before we asked for it. That is rude." "Sir, if you cannot afford to—" Julian stopped. He realized he had said the quiet part out loud. Elena gasped. Caleb stood up. He rose slowly, unfolding to his full height of 6'4". He towered over Julian. The restaurant went silent. The couple with the martinis stopped drinking. The kitchen doors stopped swinging. Caleb didn't raise his fist. He didn't shout. He adjusted his jacket cuffs. "Affordability isn't the issue," Caleb said, his voice a low, terrifying rumble that carried to the back of the room. "Dignity is." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his worn leather wallet. He took out the $40. It was everything he had. "Here is the money for the meal," Caleb said, placing the bills on the table. "Keep the change. It seems you need it more than I do." He looked at Elena. "I am sorry. I won't let you eat with indigestion. This place doesn't deserve you." He offered his arm again. "Shall we get that dessert somewhere else? Somewhere that knows how to treat a lady?" Elena looked at the money on the table. She knew somehow that it was his last. She looked at Julian, who was pale and stepping back. She looked at Caleb, standing like a sentinel, waiting for her. She stood up. She didn't feel poor anymore. She felt protected. Elena had the strange feeling the night still wasn't done testing him. "Yes," she said. "Let's go." As they walked out, Caleb didn't look back, but Elena did. She saw Julian staring at the money, looking small and defeated. They stepped out into the cold Chicago night. The rain had turned to snow. "I'm sorry," Caleb said again, looking down at his boots. "I wanted tonight to be nice." Elena stopped him. She reached out and took his rough, grease-stained hand in both of hers. "Caleb," she said, "that was the nicest thing anyone has ever done for me. But the night wasn't over." As they walked toward the bus stop, a blue sedan skidded on the icy patch of road near them, slamming into a parked delivery truck with a sickening crunch. Glass shattered. A horn began to blare continuously. Smoke started to rise from the sedan's hood. Caleb didn't hesitate. He didn't freeze. The calm protector shifted instantly into action mode. "Stay here," he ordered, not unkindly, but with absolute command. He dropped her hand and ran toward the smoking car. Elena watched in frozen silence as Caleb reached the smoking sedan. Most people would have panicked. Most people would have pulled out their phones to film the wreckage or screamed for help without moving. Caleb did neither. He moved with the terrifying, precise efficiency of a man who understood machinery better than he understood people. The hood of the blue car was crumpled like paper, steam hissing violently into the cold night air. The driver, an elderly man, was slumped over the wheel, dazed but moving. The door was jammed shut. The metal frame buckled from the impact. "Sir, look at me." Caleb's voice cut through the noise of the blaring horn. It wasn't a shout. It was a command. "Turn off the ignition. Now." The old man fumbled and obeyed. The engine died. The horn stopped. Elena took a step forward, her heart hammering against her ribs. She saw Caleb plant his work boots firmly on the icy asphalt. He didn't yank the handle wildly. He braced his shoulder against the B-pillar, hooked his fingers into the bent frame of the window, shifted his weight, and pulled. It was a display of raw, functional strength. The metal groaned, a high-pitched screech of protest, and then the door popped open. "Easy," Caleb said, his tone shifting instantly from command to comfort. He crouched down. I've got you. Don't move your neck too fast. Let's get you out before the radiator blows. Elena watched as he unbuckled the man and helped him out, supporting the stranger's weight entirely. He led him to the curb, away from the smoking vehicle and the spilled fluids that were turning the snow into a dark, toxic slush. Sirens wailed in the distance. The cavalry was coming. Caleb checked the man's pulse, asked him his name, and kept him talking to prevent shock. He took off his own canvas jacket, the only thing keeping him warm, and draped it over the shivering old man's shoulders. Elena felt a sting of tears, hot and sudden. She had spent 10 years dating men who checked their reflections in shop windows. Here was a man stripping the clothes off his back for a stranger in the snow. When the paramedics arrived, Caleb stepped back. He faded into the background, invisible again. He retrieved his jacket and put it back on, shivering slightly. Elena walked over to him. The streetlights cast long, harsh shadows. She saw him wipe his hand on his jeans. There was a smear of blood on the dark denim. "You're hurt," she said, reaching for his hand. Caleb pulled it back gently. "It's just a scratch. Jagged metal on the doorframe. It's fine." "It's not fine. You're bleeding." "Elena," he said, his voice tired. "I'm a mechanic. I bleed every day. It's part of the job." He looked around. The excitement was over. The tow truck was backing up. The reality of their situation rushed back in like the cold wind coming off the lake. They were standing on a street corner, miles from her apartment, miles from his, in the freezing cold. And he had empty pockets. Caleb looked at the ground. The heroic posture vanished, replaced by the slump of a man crushed by the weight of his own circumstances. "I can't get you a cab," he said, his voice cracking. He didn't look at her. "I gave that manager everything I had. I don't have a car nearby. It's in the shop for parts. I took the bus here." Elena stood still. The wind whipped her hair across her face. "I don't mind the bus," she said. Caleb laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "I don't have the fare for the bus, Elena. I have nothing. Literally nothing." The confession hung between them, stark and humiliating. "Why?" Elena asked softly. "Why did you give him $40 if it was all you had? You could have just walked out." Caleb finally looked at her. His eyes were dark pools of exhaustion. "Because he was making you feel small. And I couldn't afford to buy the restaurant to fire him. So I bought your dignity instead. It was the only currency I had." He rubbed his face with his uninjured hand. "I should go. You can call an Uber. You have your phone. I'll just walk from here." "Walk?" Elena grabbed his arm. "Caleb, it's 6 miles to the south side. In this snow, I've walked further for less," he said. "Please, Elena, go home. This date. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have come. I thought I could pretend for one night that things were normal. But they aren't." "What isn't normal?" Elena pressed. She wasn't letting him go. Not now. "Talk to me." He looked at the bus stop bench. It was covered in a thin layer of frost. He walked over and brushed it off with his sleeve, then sat down heavily. He looked up at her, resigned. "My sister died 6 months ago," he said. The words came out flat, stripped of emotion because he had said them too many times to lawyers and social workers. "Car accident. Not unlike that one." Elena sat down next to him. She didn't care about the cold or the dirt on the bench. She sat close enough that their arms touched. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. She left behind a daughter, Lily. She's 7. Lily's father. He wasn't a good man. He had a temper that he took out on the people closest to him, leaving bruises that money can't fix. His parents, the ones suing me now, they have millions, but they used that wealth to cover for him, to make sure his mistakes never had consequences. I tried to step in once. I was ready to stop him permanently. But my sister blocked the door. She wasn't afraid for herself anymore. She was terrified of what his family's lawyers would do to me if I laid a hand on their golden boy. So she took Lily and moved to the next town over, just to keep us all safe. Now that she's gone, those same people who looked the other way when she was hurting, they want custody. They want a fresh start to clear their conscience. But I won't let Lily grow up in a house where money is used to hide the truth. I just won't. He held up his scarred hands. I spent every dime I saved on a retainer for a lawyer who tells me I'm losing. Yesterday, I paid the last installment. That's why I'm broke. I'm not irresponsible, Elena. I'm just drowning. I'm fighting to keep the only family I have left, and I'm losing. He turned to her, his eyes wet. So, you see, I have no business dating. I have no business trying to impress a nice woman like you. I can't even buy you a dessert. I'm a sinking ship and I won't drag you down with me. Elena felt her heart break, and then immediately knit itself back together, stronger than before. She looked at this man. He had been insulted, starved, and injured in the span of 2 hours. Yet his only concern was that he hadn't treated her well enough. He was fighting a system that equated wealth with worthiness, a system she knew intimately because she was usually on the winning side of it. She saw the fatigue in his posture. He wasn't asking for money. He wasn't asking for pity. He was giving her an out. He was trying to protect her from his own mess. "You think you're losing," Elena said, her voice steady. "I know I am. The court date is in 3 weeks. The judge looks at my bank account, and he looks at theirs. It's simple math." "It's not simple math," Elena said. She reached out and took his hand again, careful of the cut. "It's character. And you have more of that in your little finger than those people have in their bank vaults." Caleb shook his head. "Character doesn't pay rent, Elena. It doesn't pay court fees." "No," she agreed. "But it buys loyalty. And it buys respect." She stood up. The wind was biting, but she didn't feel it. She felt a fire kindling in her chest, a familiar feeling she usually reserved for boardrooms and zoning hearings. But this time, it was personal. "Caleb," she said. "Stand up." He looked up, confused. "What?" "Stand up. We aren't walking home. And you aren't walking 6 miles in the snow." "Elena, I told you. I can't." "I know what you can't do," she interrupted gently. "Let me show you what I can do." She pulled her phone from her pocket. She didn't open the rideshare app. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a number she hadn't used in months. It was a private car service her firm kept on retainer for VIP clients. "I have a confession to make," she said, looking down at him. Caleb stood up slowly, sensing the shift in her energy. She didn't look like the timid woman in the thrift store coat anymore. Her posture had straightened. Her chin was up. "I lied to you," she said. Caleb's face fell. You're married?" "No," she said quickly. "God, no. I lied about who I am. Or rather, what I am." She unbuttoned the top button of her frayed coat, letting it hang loose. Underneath, she was wearing a simple sweater, but the way she wore it had changed. She wasn't hiding anymore. "I didn't wear this coat because it's the only one I have," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I wore it because I was tired of men who only liked me for what I could buy them. I wanted to see if anyone could see me." She stepped closer to him. She placed a hand on his chest, right over his heart. She could feel it beating, steady, strong, alive. "You didn't just see me, Caleb. You protected me. You starved for me. You spent your last dollar to defend my honor against a man who isn't fit to shine your boots." Caleb stared at her, processing the words. "I don't understand." "Elena, who are you?" "My name is Elena Vance," she said. "I own Vance Architecture. We designed the skyline you see across the river. And ironically," a small, sharp smile played on her lips, "we are the firm currently reviewing the commercial lease for the Gilded Fork." Caleb's jaw dropped slightly. "The restaurant?" "The restaurant," she confirmed. "And the building it sits in." A black SUV with tinted windows turned the corner, gliding silently through the snow. It slowed and pulled up to the curb right in front of them. The driver, a man in a suit, stepped out and opened the rear door. "Good evening, Ms. Vance," the driver said. "To the residence?" Caleb looked at the car, then back at Elena. He looked like he wanted to run. He looked like he had been tricked. "I'm not rich," he said, his voice hard. "If you're playing a game—" "No game," Elena said, her eyes fierce. "This is real life, and in real life good men are rare. I found one tonight. I'm not letting him walk away into the snow." She held out her hand to the open car door. "Get in, Caleb. We need to get that hand cleaned up. And then we are going to talk about your niece." Caleb hesitated. His pride was warring with his exhaustion. He looked at the luxury car, a symbol of the world that was trying to take Lily away from him. Then he looked at Elena. Her face was open, vulnerable, pleading. She wasn't offering charity. She was offering a partnership. "I can't pay you back for this ride," he said stubbornly. Elena smiled, and this time, it was the softest thing he had ever seen. "You already paid," she said. "You paid with kindness. Now get in the car." Caleb took a breath, the cold air filling his lungs one last time. He nodded once, surrendered to the moment, and ducked into the warmth of the back seat. Elena slid in beside him. As the door closed, sealing out the noise of the city, she didn't look at him with pity. She looked at him with a plan. The night was far from over. Justice was coming, and it was going to wear a very expensive suit. The ride to Elena's penthouse was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence. Caleb sat stiffly at first, worried about getting grease on the leather seats, until Elena rested her head on his shoulder. It was a gesture of total acceptance. She wasn't bringing a project home to fix. She was bringing a partner home to heal. Over the next hour, while she cleaned and bandaged his hand with a tenderness that belied her corporate reputation, the plan took shape. She didn't offer to pay his bills directly. She knew his pride wouldn't allow it. Instead, she offered him a weapon. "My firm keeps a legal team on retainer," Elena said, taping the gauze over his knuckles. "They are vicious. They usually fight zoning boards and contract disputes. But they have a special hatred for bullies. I'm going to lend them to you, Caleb. Not as a gift, but as a loan. You can pay me back by helping me restore an old Victorian office building I bought in the suburbs. It needs mechanical systems, boilers, generators, things most contractors don't want to touch." Caleb looked at her, his eyes thick with emotion. It was a fair trade. It was work. It was dignity. "You'd do that for a guy you just met?" "I'd do that for a man who gave up his dinner for me," she replied. The next morning, the dynamic shifted. Elena didn't wear the thrift store coat. She wore a tailored charcoal suit that screamed authority. Her hair was sharp, her heels clicked with purpose. She drove Caleb back to the Gilded Fork not to eat, but to settle a debt. They walked in at 11 in the morning, just as the staff was setting up. Julian was at the podium, looking tired. When he saw Caleb, his lip curled slightly, ready to dismiss him again. Then he saw Elena. He didn't recognize her from the night before, but he recognized the energy. He recognized the cut of the suit. And then, as she stepped into the light, he recognized the face from the trade magazines. "Ms. Vance?" Julian stammered, his face draining of color. We weren't expecting a site visit. The owners said, "The owners don't know I'm here," Elena said coolly. She didn't raise her voice. She placed a hand on the podium, leaning in slightly. "I'm here to introduce you to someone. You met him last night." She gestured to Caleb, who stood beside her, clean-shaven and wearing fresh clothes, his bandaged hand at his side. He didn't look angry. He looked at peace. "This is Caleb," Elena said. "He is a personal friend. Last night, you treated him like he was invisible because of his coat. Today, I want you to see him clearly." Julian swallowed hard, looking between the powerful architect and the mechanic. I was just following protocol, Ms. Vance. The tables were reserved." "We both know that's a lie, Julian," Elena said, her voice dropping to a whisper that was louder than a shout. "My firm is reviewing the lease renewal for this building next month. I value excellence in the businesses we house. Excellence isn't just about the food. It's about how you treat people when you think no one of consequence is watching." She let the threat hang there. She wasn't going to fire him. She was going to let him live with the fear that she was always watching. "Caleb is a good man," Elena finished. "Better than most. I suggest you remember that the next time you judge a book by its cover. We won't be dining here today. I prefer places with a warmer atmosphere." They turned and walked out. Caleb didn't gloat. He didn't look back. He just held the door for her, his head held high. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was silent. The high-priced lawyers for the grandparents had arrived, but they hadn't expected Elena's legal shark, a woman who dissected their arguments with surgical precision. When the evidence of the covered-up abuse came to light, police reports that had been buried, medical records that had been sealed, the judge's expression turned grim. Caleb took the stand. He didn't have money, but he had the truth. He spoke of the nights he held his sister while she cried, of the promises he made to Lily. He spoke with the same calm strength he had shown at the bistro. The gavel came down. Sole custody to the uncle. Lily was waiting in the hallway. When Caleb walked out, tears streaming down his face, she ran to him. He scooped her up, burying his face in her small shoulder. He was sobbing, finally letting go of the weight he had carried for months. Elena stood a few feet away, watching. She felt a hand on her arm. It was Caleb, reaching out for her, pulling her into the family circle. "We did it," he whispered into her hair. "You did it," she corrected. "I just held the door open." 6 months later, in a warm house that smelled of baking bread and engine oil, Elena opened the hall closet. Hanging there, next to Caleb's work jackets and Lily's bright pink raincoat, was her old, frayed thrift store coat. She closed the closet door and walked into the kitchen, where Caleb was teaching Lily how to butter toast without tearing the bread. He looked up, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Hungry?" he asked. "Starving," she said. And for the first time in her life, she knew she would never be empty again. I personally shape every story here because these lessons matter, and people deserve to be heard. So if this story moved you, please like the video and comment the secret word dignity, so I know you stayed until the end.